Hi guys, welcome back. I hope you're all doing well, and today I thought I would film another try a chapter tag. I've been feeling a bit slumpy in my reading, not really knowing what to read, and I also feel like stuff that's been happening has made me kind of overanalyze what I want to read and what I should maybe not read because I might not be in the right headspace for it. And you might have seen that Katie from the channel Books and Things has decided to do a TBR Clearout challenge for the month of April. And the idea is to try and get to the books that you've had on your TBR for a long time. And I have this Excel sheet where I put all the books that I buy and which month I bought them in, and went way back and looked at the books that I haven't read yet that were the oldest on my TBR. And pretty much all of them I bought in 2018. When I bought them, I didn't have a channel yet, and I was still kind of figuring out what kind of books I like. So my tastes might have changed, and I somehow need to find out if I'm still interested in these books at all. So the try a chapter tag is actually perfect for that, and that's basically just selecting a few books and trying a chapter or a few pages depending if the book has doesn't have chapters, and trying to figure out if you're still interested in them. I did a try a chapter tag Unhaul edition a few months ago that I will link for you, and that was really helpful in deciding which books I'm not interested in at all from my TBR. But the focus now is which of the really old books that I have on my TBR are still relevant for me. I've selected 6 books that have been on my TBR the longest, and we'll try them out and decide if I'm still interested in them, and we'll at least try to read 2 of the ones I select in April. So the book that I have had on my TBR for the longest is Witches Abroad by Terry Pratchett. I last read a Terry Pratchett book in summer 2018, and probably that's when I bought this book after that. Terry Pratchett wrote these whole Discworld series books, and the 2 previous books in the loosely based witches series, so you follow these 3 witches and what they're up to, and this one is kind of a twist on the Sleeping Beauty fairy tale, and the 3 witches that we follow are sent to this land where things are not going according to plan. There's this princess and her fairy godmother died, and the surrogate godmother is wreaking havoc, and so the situation has to be resolved somehow. So these books are really fun and funny usually. And for some reason, I haven't read any more of these for such a long time, so I just want to see if this is still something that I might like. So I've just finished about 20 pages of Witches Abroad, and it took me like 10 pages to really get back into it. At about 10 pages in, you really get into the meat of the story, and it turns out it's probably more of a Cinderella type twist, and I am really enjoying it. There's an introductory scene with the old fairy godmother who's about to die and who wants to pass on her work to someone else, and I mean, Death is there, and I just love him as a character in the Discworld series, so you know, this is definitely a plus for me for that book. Yeah, this one is definitely staying on my TBR, and I'm gonna see what the other books are doing for me. Next up, I have The Story of a New Name by Elena Ferrante, which is the 2nd book in the Neapolitan Quartette. And there again, I read the 1st book in the series back in 2018 and asked my mom to get the 2nd and the 3rd book in French, and never touched this book again. And they're quite long books, and it doesn't look big, but these French editions are always so dense, and the pages are very thin, and the writing is very dense as well. These books in general are really hefty, and I gave 3 stars to the first book, and I did enjoy it, and I thought I would connect with them more when they grew up, because the first book is really much more about their childhood up until one of them gets married, and this book is supposed to pick up right after that. So in theory, I still want to see what's happening with their lives, but it just always kind of felt intimidating, especially because I know there's 2 more books to go after that. So we'll see how I get on with the beginning of this and if I'm still interested in the series at all. Alright, so I read the 2 first chapters and they're quite short, and I quite enjoyed it. I think it really picks up right after where the first book left off, at this wedding, and I think I'm still interested in what's going on. I just kind of had to remind myself that I was, and that's always a problem with books sitting there and you maybe just see the back or the cover and you cannot really reconnect just like that with the feelings you had with the books before or whatever. And just trying out a bit of it can really help you relive this and remind yourself why you liked it. I just really enjoy in general the fact that it's really centered on these 2 friends and how I guess ultimately their lives will come apart, but also kind of probably come back together at some point. And I think that's enough to keep me interested. I am just not sure this is one I will pick up in April. It might be something that I will keep for summer just because of the setting and the claustrophobic feel of it. So I guess I'm gonna have to read this one in 2020, but probably not in April. Next up, I have Angela Carter's book of fairy tales. I am a big fan of fairy tales and myths and legends, and when I heard Jen Campbell talk about this book, I thought, yeah, got to get that. And at some point, I treated myself to this really beautiful hardback copy, and I just never felt compelled to pick it up. I have read a book about legends and myths not so long ago, and I think that was in the summer of 2019, which is still, again, quite some time ago, and I haven't gotten back into the habit of reading these kind of stories. So this one might be a good reminder of why I like reading myths and legends. And the cool thing about this one is it's Angela Carter collected myths and legends from all over the world. So that's also something that I think is always really fascinating. And yeah, I guess I just have to give this one a go. So I read the first tale, which was from Greece, and quite enjoyed it. The twist at the end is very dark. And I've never read any Angela Carter before, but I've heard that that's her thing, like her stories, and I think she also does a lot of retellings of older stories are always with a dark twist. So I think I'm enjoying this. I feel like I've been reading quite a lot of short story collections in the last month or so, and I feel like I need something longer that catches my attention for a longer time right now, but this is definitely one that I could see myself dip in and out of, maybe already this month. Let's see, if not during the rest of this year. So yeah. Next up I have How to Be Both by Ali Smith. This is one I've had for ages too, and the last time I read Ali Smith was in spring of 2018. I read the first book in her seasonal quartet Autumn, and I think I gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed it. I was surprised how well I got on with her writing style. If you've read her before, you know what I mean. It's kind of strange and disconnected, but really poetic. And then I bought this book and The Accidental, and that very same year in the summer tried to read The Accidental and somehow couldn't get on with it, and I couldn't really pinpoint what I did like about it. This kind of led to a longer pause of not reading Ellie Smith and being really reluctant of picking her books up again. And I also procrastinated picking up Winter, the second book in the seasonal quartet, this winter. So maybe this is just a prompt for me to get on with it and just get over myself and try it out. This is, as far as I know, I don't know too much about it. I know that it's a split narrative and you have a storyline about a teenage girl in modern times and then a narration from a Renaissance painter. And I don't know how they connect or how it's going to turn out, but I don't think a story is always the important thing in an Ellie Smith book. So yeah, let's get on with it. So I read about 15 pages of this. The thing is, I mean, I could just go on because there's no chapter, there's no real structure. It's very much stream of consciousness writing. And I kind of surprised myself because I wanted to go on with it. How the narratives are split, I think, are dependent on your edition. I believe there are some editions where you start off with the narration that takes place in our time, and some that start with the one from the 1400s, and mine apparently starts with the one from the 1400s, and I am really enjoying it. I mean, of course, the writing style is how it is, but it has this nice flowiness to it. Like, I felt like just wanting to continue and seeing what's going on. Obviously, there's not much going on as such, and we are kind of introduced to this painter, and he talks about a painting that he's looking at and the way that he describes it and going through the different places of the painting and describing them and describing the fabrics and the textures and stuff. I just thought it was really cool, and that might just be because that's something I'm personally interested in, but I am kind of surprised at myself. I kind of want to continue reading this. I don't know how I'll get on with the other narration. In general, like split narration things can be a very hit or miss. For me, it has to be executed really well, but let's see how Ellie Smith does this. And okay, this one might be on my shortlist for the books that I actually read this month in April. And to round up this video, I've chosen 2 nonfiction books because I also have nonfiction books that I haven't gotten to for such a long time, and this one is particularly a shame because it just looks absolutely beautiful. It kind of reminds me of the cover of Medieval Bodies by Jack Hartnell, which I read last year and really enjoyed. It has this very feel of like a medieval bestiary, and I believe that's what the book is trying to do. This is the Book of Barely Imagined Beings by Caspar Henderson, 21st century bestiary, and it looks at animals or creatures that inhabit our earth but are very surprising either in form or shape or how they live, and it's very much like medieval bestiaries were at the time. Is also at the same time it's information and description of these beings, but also kind of a stepping stone to discuss more broad issues and kind of mixing in like philosophical and ethical things. So the premise sounds incredible, and it is also quite a hefty one, but a lot of it is sources as well. But it's also one that you can probably dip in and out of quite well. So again, this is one of these books that just due to their fractionated structure might not be something that I want to rush to right now. But I'm gonna give this a go and see how I like it. Alright, so I have read the about 10-15 first pages of the first chapter, which I can show you right here with the beautiful illustrations, which is about the axolotl. And you can really feel very early on what the book is trying to do. So to start with, there's just a short explanation of what an axolotl actually is, which are these amphibians that can regrow their limbs. But very quickly you kind of feel what the author is trying to do with this book, I think, which is to look at what this creature is in a more broader perspective. And he talked a lot about what it means in terms of where our research, our scientific research could go, and if we would understood this mechanism of regeneration, what could we do with it for us humans. But it also talks about how this creature still looks kind of humanoid, and how it has been seen in history and the different ways in which it was manifested. So there's a lot of parallels to salamanders and what they meant for people, especially in the Middle Ages. And also just how we humans kind of try to distance ourselves from animals and always have this thing of, we're not governed by our instincts, we're like rational beings and everything, and how that's sometimes really contradictory. So I am really impressed. I think this is one of the books I already knew that I would really like it, but now at least it kind of gave me an idea of in which direction it will really go, and I'm definitely really, really motivated again to read this book. Just probably not going to be in April, but I will really try to read it in 2020. The last book I have on my list, as I said, is another nonfiction, and that's Darm mit Charme by Giulia, and this is, I think in English, it's called Gut. And this is, as the title says, a nonfiction book about how the gut works and how it relates to our brain, and how the working together of things that are happening in our gut and our brain are directly affecting like our physical and mental health. And I've picked this up because it was insanely popular in Germany and sold a lot, and I have one of these faulty book prints, so misprints books that are usually very cheap when you get them here, and I don't know why I never picked it up, to be honest. I'm gonna give it a go, and hopefully that will re-trigger my motivation for reading this in the first place, and maybe it will be a nice pick for this month. So I read the short introduction as well as the first chapter, and I am really enjoying this. It's written in a very conversational tone, and I think it's perfect for people who are not really well versed in anything like scientific or like biology wise. Especially the introduction was really interesting because the author talked about how events in her life led her to start to get interested in how important the gut is for especially our mental health. And I think she is also currently doing a PhD on that topic. I really like it. I was surprised how fast I breezed through these 20 or so pages. And I think this is a really strong contender for April. I feel like I need something that I can breeze through that will be informational and interesting. And yeah, very promising indeed. So, conclusions. I am still very much interested in all the books that I've picked out, which were the oldest ones on my TBR. I, however, will set aside the Book of Fairytales, the Book of Barely Imagined Beings aside, because they're books that I would potentially read more in chunks, and that's something that I've been doing for a while in the last month or so. So I just want something that's more a single work. And this book, The Story of a New Name, I will probably keep for further this summer. I definitely want to read Darm this month, and I am a bit on the fence about which other book I should read this month, whether it be Witches Abroad by Terry Pratchett or How to Be Both by Ali Smith. They're very different, and just from my gut feeling, I think I will give How to Be Both a try and try to really get into it, just because it really surprised me how fast I got on with it and how I got caught up in the flow of the words. So yeah, I will probably read these two books in April and try and work on the other books and get them finished by the end of 2020, because I can't have, it's just ridiculous to have books on your TBR for like 2 years plus. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little exploration of my very old TBR. Let me know how you're doing, if you're participating in the TBR Clearout challenge, and which goals you've set for yourself. Are there any of these books that you've read or that you're interested in? Or yeah, tell me what you're reading, how you're doing, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!